me? You hear me good? Okay, that's cool. All right, that was it. Uh, I think you can leave now.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, good, thank you.
I like that sticker. The help desk thing. Very cool.
Thank you.
Ashley, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Have you spoken to the council members? Did you get confirmation from all of them?
I did. I got confirmation from Councilwoman Ruano, Colazo, Diegues. I know Diegues is going to be running a little late. And also Jeffrey Rodriguez and Vice Mayor, which is already on here.
Yeah. And you confirmed with them that they all realize that it's 6:30?
Yes.
Okay.
Ed,
Yes, sir.
can I ask you about the sandbag idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, I'm just curious. What was the?
We
We expecting something or?
no. When that storm was coming, whatever it was, 3 or 4 weeks ago, that was kind of threatening, the tropical storm. We talked internally here and we thought that it would be a good idea to have some ready to go sandbags. So it's not like we're expecting a Cat 2, Cat 3 hurricane or anything. We're expecting a rain event, something that's pre-planned, like a tropical storm or just something below a tropical storm. So we wanted to have some ready to go sandbags that we can put out to the residents, especially in those areas that are more low lying, that flood more often. So we wanted them without having to, at that last moment for a minor event, start scrambling to go get a truckload of sand, etc. So we thought that we would have a ready reserve of sandbags So what we did is we packed today, I think it was about 200 ready to go bags of sand, which isn't going to cover the whole town, but it's going to cover a handful of people that may need it. And
Okay.
so that was the logic or the genesis behind the idea.
All right, perfect. No, I was just curious I mean, if there was something more that we weren't aware of, but perfect. Okay.
And it also gave us the opportunity to test run the bagging devices that Willie bought for us. Willie's our logistics chief,
Yeah.
and he bought these bagging devices, and we bought bags, and we kind of test run it. And
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. I was just curious. I mean, because people are asking me, are we expecting something?
No. And what we did is we loaded or we packed, I think it was we packed over 200 bags in about 40 minutes. So those bags proved to be really, those devices, the bagging devices proved to be,
Right.
those funnels, very valuable.
Yeah. All right, perfect. No, I just wanted to make sure because, like I said, got a couple people, texting me, asking me why we did it and if we're expecting something. I was like, I don't know we're expecting anything, but we'll definitely ask.
It was that, I think it was called Isaias that was kind of coming our way.
Yeah, Isaias.
And escorted us,
Right.
went up the coast.
Right.
But when it was approaching us, it was just a tropical storm, and it was going to be a rain event, water event. So we thought that's when the idea hit us, and we thought, hey, let's have some ready to go bags.
Yeah, I think,
for an event like that.
Got you. And but right now we're not giving them out. Right now we're just holding them until something else happens, right?
Correct. So we're storing them at the lockup at the park, and they're secure. And in the event that we need to deploy them, they're ready to go, and we can just we have a pallet jack, and we just wheel them out, and they'll be ready to go in 5 minutes.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I just figured I asked because, like I said, I got a text going, what was that for? And are we expecting something? I said, man, you got me. I didn't see. I mean, I know there's a couple storms out there, but nothing major. But that worked.
We had planned for this probably at least a couple weeks ago.
All right, excellent. Thanks. That's the only question I have. Planning is better than no planning and getting caught behind. I completely agree. It's a good idea.
So what do we got? We got the vice mayor and council member Rodriguez. The Rodriguez brothers, they're on.
Good evening. I won't be turning on my video because I didn't feel like doing my hair.
Put some gel in it or a ball cap.
I got no hair left, Jeffrey. After this campaign, I got to feel your pain.
I hear you, brother. All right, you made a valiant effort, dude. It is what it is. Sometimes everything happens for a reason. That's what I like to say.
There's a plan, man. There's a plan. Whatever it is, there's a plan. So I'm sure at the end of the day, we'll, God will tell me the plan one day.
And
and I'll be there. Yeah, whatever happens. I'm good, man. I've got amazing support. Everybody.
Manny said.
Hold on, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you joining?
I made you a co-host as well, just in case.
Okay, thank you, Herman.
Ed, Manny just called me and said that he thought it was 6:45. So he'll log on in a little bit
Okay.
for some reason.
Actually, you know what? He's 100% right. Well, no, that was yesterday's meeting. I'm trying to think.
No, Gina sent a text yesterday that
today.
we had to move it. That we had to move it to 6:45 because Josh is speaking at some event in
Oh, that's
Hialeah.
right.
100%. That's right. So I got confused between yesterday and today. Today, they asked, Josh asked, Councilmember Dieguez asked if we could delay the start for until 6:45. That's 100%
Yeah.
correct.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Collazo.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, you have feedback. You're muted, sorry. You're
I'm going to
muted.
log off one device and go to another. Yeah, I was just logging in. I had two logons and I just left one.
Perfect, yeah.
Mr. Manager, I'm checking in with Councilwoman Ruano to see if she's going to be joining us.
Okay, what about Councilmember Alvarez?
I never got a confirmation. Gina told me that he had told her that he was going to be unable to make it.
That he was unable. Okay, so
Correct.
the mayor said he was coming on at 6:45, which is a little past that.
The mayor said to get started without him, so.
Okay, so
he
then
would log on,
Councilmember Ruano is the only one that that we need to see if she's gonna be able to join us, or she'll be a little late.
Correct.
Let me know, Ashley. Thank you.
All right, I just got off the phone with her. She said to go ahead and start, and she's going to be logging on in a few minutes.
Okay. All right. So, gentlemen, are you all ready to go?
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to share my screen. The way I propose that we handle this workshop is similar to what we did with the first workshop. The difference between the first workshop and today's workshop is the first one dealt exclusively with the general fund. Today, we're going to take another look at the general fund, that now we have some more updated information. So the information that you see in today's general fund is up to date. And we're also going to address all the other funds in order to review the entire budget. So I'm going to share my screen. This is the same. This is the same document that I shared with you earlier today. Tell me when you see my screen.
We see your screen.
Okay. It says Town of Miami Lakes for FY 2021 proposed budget summary at the top.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The first two pages here are going to deal with the general fund. So this is the format of this is similar, actually exact to what you saw when we met the first time. Just going across the columns here, just they're self-explanatory, but just to walk through them. The blue column here is the 18-19 actuals end of year. 19-20, this is the budget that we adopted last year, that you adopted last year. Throughout the year with budget amendments, it was amended, and this was the amended budget, the second orange column. And then this third orange column is what we project now that we have almost the entire year. We're minus a month and change. These are the year-end projections. This green column is the most important one because this is what we're proposing for the new fiscal year 2021. And then you have some columns here that will show you the variance between the proposed budget and the last year's adopted budget. And then there's some explanatory budget comments here in the margin. So we'll walk down this to take a good look at this. The first item here is
Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
And this is not on the spreadsheet, nor do I propose that this be brought up now, but at some future date, could I have an additional column which has year to date?
For the current budget?
Yeah.
So somewhere in here, between the amended and what we project the year to end like for the year to date.
Yeah. You between year and projection. Yes, correct. Yeah, year to date. I just want to know where we're at today.
That would be
and it
very
doesn't have to-
helpful, yes.
Pardon me?
I said that would be very helpful. I agree. That can kind of show us where we are today. We're close to the end of the year, so we can see the numbers nearing the end of the year.
Okay. We'll put that together and we'll email it out to all of you tomorrow.
And it doesn't, and not necessarily to the day. It can be the last, whatever you have, the last month. Probably is the last, book that you have on there. So I take that.
Okay. We'll do that. All right. As we walk down the, obviously the first part of the spreadsheet shows our revenues. Ad valorem, as we spoke about before, we had an increase in our tax base. This value here of $8,040,628 is based on what I told you the last time, which our recommendation was to leave the current millage rate steady, flat. That represents a nearly $600,000 extra in revenues. The franchise fees, that is the FP&L franchise fee. If you remember, last year we had $390,000. And next year we project 1.208 because we're going to have a full year of the franchise fee. We have here, the next thing is the utility service tax, which is a slight increase from last year based on adopted. We do project that the year-end projection is going to be higher, and that's why we tweaked it up to 2.994 million. The communication services tax, this is a tax that is a declining tax. We've seen the trends with this tax, and that's why we're being conservative with that. We are, it's a tax that's on telephone lines, and with the ever decreasing number of landlines, especially, we've seen this number over the years slowly, but it is declining, and that's why we're going lower than what we had budgeted last year. The state revenue, this is
real quick, Mr. Manager.
Go ahead.
How did you get to that 16.78 number?
Which number?
The percentage, the factor that was taken out on the decrease in the communication service tax.
This here, that is the variance, right? So the that is how much lower this is than this. So the this percentage change is how much lower this percent versus last year.
Got it. So you took over the past 3 cycles, the difference, and you averaged that out into a percentage, and that's how you came with.
No, because this here is only what we're showing you here, that negative 198,000. That is the difference between this and this. So that represents a 16.78% decline from last year's adopted budget.
Got it. And I was just wondering how you came up with that factor, the 16 point. How did you get to that number? Like if you compare the 18-19 actuals to the 19-20 actuals, right? Whatever that would be, they would give you some type of trend. And I thought that's kind of how you calculated it.
No, what this is, obviously the percent is derived from this number.
Got
this
it.
Negative 198. If you divide that by $1.181 million, that gives you a negative 16.78%.
No, but I think he's asking why 16.78%.
Right.
Not how you not why it is 16.78% and the math on it, but what was the estimate, or why did we think that 16.78 is the number that we're expecting a decrease?
Yeah, we didn't start with that number. We started with this number that I've highlighted there. We're forecasting. This is what we project to be the year-end uh, amount there, the amount of revenue, 1.078. Even though we budgeted last year 1.181, throughout the year, the experience has told us that we're not going to realize that revenue. So our year-end projection is 1.078. Since we are declining on a steady basis, this year's proposed amount is 982.
So it's safe to say that that number 16.78 is based on the trend that we're seeing in the decrease.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is state revenue sharing, and obviously we do see a minor decreasing of 58,000. That is the state revenue numbers. We get those numbers from the state, and they give us the numbers that they forecast are going to be in. So we use the state's forecast estimates in our budget. So this one here, state revenue sharing, that number of 748,000, that was provided by the state of Florida. The next one is minor items, $20,000. That's alcohol beverage license. Then this is the big one. This one is the half-cent sales tax. Last year we had budgeted 2.5. You know, as a result of COVID, we are projecting 2.2 to finish this year. So because of the COVID experience, the state has given us a number to plug in here as a forecasted number of 2.101. The next item here are permits and fees that are not building department related. And then we have fines and forfeitures, and miscellaneous revenues are for park rentals. And we see a decline there. Obviously, the parks are closed. We haven't been able to rent them. We do expect that at some point throughout the year, they're going to reopen. So we didn't want, well, obviously, we're not going to zero that out. But we did plug in a significant reduction in park rental revenue.
Mr. Manager, quick question.
Yes.
The state revenue sharing number and the half-cent sales tax number, just correcting or making sure that I'm correct, those are population-based, right? That we get a certain share from the state based on our population, and same with the half-cent?
I'd have to check. Yeah, Melissa's telling me yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and by the way, from time to time, I'm gonna lean on Melissa and Kay to plug in here and answer some of your questions and chime in on some of these things. So I just want to give you that heads up.
Don't worry, I won't hold it against you.
I'm smart, but I ain't that smart. They're a lot smarter than me.
Mr. Manager, on the state, on the revenues on the state side, I know you shared an article earlier today, and I've been reading other articles coming out of them forecasting additional deficits. I know that you're being conservative in trying to mitigate whatever exposure we have due to COVID, but does the state really have their head around what these numbers are, or can these also fluctuate based on additional issues with COVID?
Well, obviously, none of us, not us, not the state, has a crystal ball, right? So none of us, when we plugged in last year's 1920 adopted budget, when we had those forecasts and the state had provided those numbers, we knew what we knew, and we didn't know what we didn't know. So we didn't know COVID was around the corner. What they have sent us these estimates and these forecasts based on what we know, and both medically and everything else. Now that we know that COVID is out there, they are continuing the trends. They're looking at the trends. They're looking at the positivity rates. They're looking at whether this COVID experience is getting worse, it's getting base those estimates on all of those factors. It's not any one thing that they say. Multitude of things that they base those estimates when they provide them to us.
So in following up with that, when we first started reviewing this budget, and again, we had just started feeling the effects of COVID, the state sent us other revenue projections. Were they in line and consistent with these numbers? Were they more? Were they less?
The state sends us estimates once a year in preparation because all local governments are preparing their budgets at the same time. So they send us the forecast projections once a year. After that, then we just see the actual receipt, the monthly receipts of the money from the state.
When did the state
so they
send
don't
you
update their forecast?
Yeah. So when did the state give you these figures?
After our last meeting, after the last workshop. That's why these are up to date numbers. They gave it to us near the end of July. So these numbers are, whatever, 2 or 3 weeks old.
Got it. So they're not necessarily going to give us new numbers as this trend. The new numbers we're going to get are based on whatever we start receiving from them.
Correct. These are the freshest numbers, and that's it. They provided these, and these are the numbers. Otherwise, it's be almost impossible for a local government to build a budget because it'd be a moving target. So they provide this. They take the snapshot. It's as close to budget season as possible. They take all those factors that I talked about earlier into account, and then they provide those numbers. But these numbers are about 2 to 3 weeks old.
Yeah, and the only reason that I'm drilling into it is because this is an unprecedented event, right? We really don't completely understand what the ripple effects may be. And I know that there's a lot of optimism that we'll rebound and rebound quickly. But I've also heard a lot of people saying, look, there's billions with a B deficit in Tallahassee. And when there's a deficit in Tallahassee, we know that there's a constriction in the budget and the monies that we receive. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood, at least on the revenue side, because that's the part that I guess we're covering now. And that's, I think, some of the things that Councilwoman Ruano has alluded to in the past, but making sure that we understand completely what may impact our revenue side so we can move through and make sure that we have a balanced budget. So I appreciate all the answers and your patience and answering the questions. And thank you, Melissa and Kay, for chiming in when you do, because it helps guide me as well.
Yeah, and these numbers reflect those estimates. So when at Tallahassee, they talk about the billions with a B. When we get down and you spread out the pain throughout all municipalities or local governments throughout the state, our piece of the pain or our piece of that deficit is what you see reflected in these numbers.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So as we move down here, you see here that now these two numbers are zeros, right? That was last year the two transfers that we had, one from MLOP, the 420, and the 431 that we had to transfer from fund balance.
Mr. Manager, Mr. Manager, 1 second. On the interfund transfer, the adopted budget for last year shows 420, but the year-end projection shows 551. Can you explain why that is?
Melissa, can you chime in? What is that 551? Why is that different? There are other things in there. And it could have been part of the carryover.
It was part of the carryover. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's part of the 131 that we got additionally from the debt service, I believe. Give me 1 second. I'll give you the exact.
Yeah, that's
it was part of your I'm sorry, go ahead.
The budget amendment that we did in January or February. Remember that we had the interest from those CDs that came in. That was added in there during the budget amendment.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah, that's the same question I had. Thanks, Jeff.
This 198,700, that is the legal reserve. So here, So that is the amount that we're carrying over from the end of our current fiscal year. So general fund reserves for proposed in this budget are 17,090,128. It represents a reduction in the general fund of 269,864. What did I say? Reserves? No, revenues. I'm sorry. 17,090,128 in revenue. And that's $269,000 less than the adopted budget in 1920. When we scroll down the page a little bit, we move down, no, not there yet, into expenditure. Okay. As we go down, we see the mayor and council, pretty much in line with the history, the town clerk, the town attorney, and then under administration, we have 1.965. Some of that increase dealt with FRS, modified their contribution rate. We reinstated the lobbyist service, and we plugged back in the mid-year budget amendment, we plugged back in some of the things that we had cut in last year's adopted budget, like travel, training, and subscription. That leads us to this 1.965 experience for out of the general fund for administration. We have here, this is 8.597 is the estimate for police and crossing guards. I guess when you go back, at some point the crossing guards were provided by Miami-Dade County, so they've always been budgeted together. Obviously, the police department is the lion's share of this number, but it is $220,000 less than last year. There were a few items that Miami-Dade County Police had asked us or had sent us in their estimate, right? So similar to what the revenue estimates were at the top that were provided those by the state, this expense estimate is provided to us by Miami-Dade County based on the number of officers, which officers, the vehicle leasing, all the expenses related, overtime, all the expenses related to police. The new number, which was also provided by police, is 8.5. Now, the overhead rate reduction to police contracts due to retroactive pay in the current year. If you remember last year, Miami-Dade Police had just negotiated a new contract that was retroactive back to the 1st of October. So in this 8.8 were the retroactive payments that in their collective bargaining agreement, they were due to pay the officers. Obviously this year, there is no retroactive. They're in the middle of a collective bargaining agreement, so there won't be any retroactive payments for a new agreement.
Mr. Manager, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are the crossing guards currently getting paid?
The crossing guards, we kept paying them
during COVID?
at the end of last school year. Well, right now they're not getting paid because the school year hasn't officially started.
Right.
But last year we did continue to pay them throughout, even after school suspended. And we repurposed them. If you remember, when we used them in the parks. Once the parks reopened, we reused them as monitors in the park for ensuring facial coverings and social distancing. Yeah. And now our plan is, and it goes in the same vein as our philosophy was, that we didn't want to contribute any more to the problem, the macro problem of our economy by putting people out of work. So we decided we have the money budgeted, and we thought that we would repurpose them. We wouldn't have them just twiddling their thumbs, and it proved to be valuable to the parks, because now the parks staff would be able to continue their other functions and didn't have to babysit the trail or so forth. So,
do we have a plan for the next 9 weeks?
Yeah, our plan is to go back to that model.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This next number is planning and zoning. We had a part-time planning and zoning officer that retired. We, in conjunction with our building director, we took a look at it, and we both agreed that based on the volume of new permit applications and so forth, that we can go with just a single zoning officer, and that's what we've done, and that's why you see that that reduction there of 54,000 from last year's budget. Code compliance, the majority of this increase is based on because of the FRS increase and some health insurance increases that are the health insurance increases are reflected across all of the personnel costs within this whole entire area. Next is Parks and Recreation. And Parks and Recreation, we actually show a reduction of 110,000. There are some items in parks that we are postponing or really not doing, similar like field lining, mulching cycles, because there's no organized play. So some of the things dealing with savings of electricity on the play fields because they're not being used at night. Again, the lining of the field. There are some savings that we're recognizing in here, and that will. Melissa, remind me, did we forecast that out for the first 3 months or the first 6 months of the year that we were going to have these reductions?
It's supposed to be for the first 3 months of the year, sir.
Good, thank you. The next thing here, community outreach and engagement. This is 384. This is for our communications department. We have a little extra money in here, most of which we had targeted for the 20th anniversary. We don't know what it's going to look like between now and December, so we didn't want to cut that out and then we get surprised and maybe we'd be able to move forward with the 20th anniversary. So we're still in the 20th anniversary celebration is still in the works. We don't know if we're going to be able to do some of the things that we had previously thought of pre-COVID, or we're going to have to do something similar to what we did with the Independence Day celebration. So Claricel and her team are in the planning phase. They're going multiple or parallel courses to be ready whichever way that works out. The committees, the amount appropriated for committees is the same amount as last year, except for the 10,000 that the Special Needs Advisory Board, the extra 10,000 that they were appropriated during last year's budget. So we've gone, essentially this keeps the committee budget flat from last year's adopted budget.
Mr. Manager, the 18-19 actuals says 319,000, and we've always stayed around the same amount. I don't remember a time where we've gone either higher or lower than around that 200,000 for the committees. I think it's 194 and then 184 this year. Is that the sponsorship monies that get lumped in there and then they get pulled out? That's why the actual.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what drives that number up, because even here you see in the amended budget and in the year-end projection, what that does is it adds, it's from the sponsorship money that drives it up throughout the year based on what they are able to generate.
Got it. And then I guess that's put back in somehow on the revenue side.
Yes, they actually, Melissa, go ahead, and I know that you do something for those sponsorships. You plug them in somewhere else, right? So that throughout the year as they come in, you can just transfer them over to the committee?
It's under our contributions and donations. It's all together as part of the contributions and donations under the sponsorships that we receive.
Okay.
However,
so do we show it on the revenue side or no?
Where do I show it on the revenue side?
No.
Yeah, but on the summary sheet.
Okay.
Oh, under miscellaneous revenue.
Miscellaneous revenue. Gotcha. Okay.
Got it. I see it, Melissa. Thank you.
I'm.
All right. The Public Works, our budget for Public Works is 1.155. The reduction is mulching the right of ways. What we're doing is the cycle for mulching in the right of ways. We're able to put in a mulching cycle here near the end of this current fiscal year, and that eliminated one mulching cycle from Public Works, and that. And that's what shows that that reduction of 124,000. Unit is self-explanatory. That payment, the non-departmental, that was the reduction of legal due to current year expenses. So throughout the year, last year we had.
Oh my God, Kay, I want to die.
Melissa, you're not muted. Now she is. Hopefully
Please don't die on us.
Yeah, please don't die. Please
don't die. Don't die. If not, I'm right behind you. So non-departmental, here we had the legal reserves are last year were in these 382,500. Throughout the year, we had spent some of it, 143,800. So now the new amount for this year is going to be 238,700. And that leads us to obviously our expenditures equal our revenues, and that leads us to a balanced budget. What I wanted to show you here as a follow-up is the fund balance, the state of the fund balance, okay? So what we have here is we're starting with a CAFR fund balance of 4.2. There's some adjustments that you see here throughout that are reduced. That leaves a revised fund balance of 2.6, and that represents 15.24 of total fund balance. Now, getting a little ahead of myself, this number here, 291, is what we project to be right now the year-end fund balance. But this number up here, that also includes this number that we're carrying over for legal reserves, for litigation. So this number of 291, and stop me if I'm rattling too much and it's not clear. This number of 291 really is not going to be the carryover amount. The 291 is going to be minus the 198. So really we're going to have, right now we're projecting a carryover amount of about $92,000. And obviously we still have a month and a half or so to play out the year. But what I will be recommending to you in January when this number is finalized is I'm going to be recommending that we do not reallocate that money, that we leave it in fund balance so we can make a dent and try and improve this number for next fiscal year.
Just to interject here for a second, Mr. Manager, that number is that's not the reserves that we're at right now, right? Like when you say fund balance, are you talking about both the signed and unassigned fund balance? Or?
This is, Melissa, this is the unassigned fund balance, right?
That is correct, sir.
Because some of this other stuff in here, like Hurricane Irma disallowance, all that is some of the assignments that come off of the 4.2. That's why this 2.6 is the unassigned fund balance.
And while we're talking about the disallowance there, I had seen that earlier in the initial budget that we had discussed at our prior Sunshine meeting. And I noticed that, yes, that we were counting on about $500,000 in non-reimbursable expenses. Why is that? Is it just that they disagreed with the invoice? They didn't want to make full payment?
Are you talking about Hurricane Irma?
Yeah, because I was under the impression that we're going to get back all the money.
Well, what we did is this is a safety net for it. If I'm not mistaken, and Ismail, if you're there, because I know that that's something that you dealt with FEMA, this number of 500,000 was actually higher. I think it was 800 or 900,000. And as FEMA and the state of Florida started paying Irma claims, and we saw that this number was improving, and we were getting all the money that we thought we were going to get, that this number, we actually reduced it at one point last year. Ismail, if you're there, if you could chime in and tell me if I'm explaining that accurately or not.
No, sir, you're absolutely correct. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so first let's talk a little bit about the process, because I think that will do a little bit of justice for the understanding. We had $4.6 million in claims with FEMA. FEMA obligated us 100% of that money, okay? But then what happens is that goes to FDEM, that goes to the state. And the state has a contract with KPMG, and they are forensic accountants, and they go through every single invoice, every single timesheet for the police. They go through absolutely every forensic. If I will tell you, and I'm being a little bit braggadocious now, that we have been wrestling with the state, not because we had disallowances, but because they are so objective on what they do, and they ask for so many things 13 different times, that we've had 2 jobs for 2 years, okay? So now that I said that, so now we are finalizing the audit with FDEM. And we kept lowering, like the Mr. Manager said, we kept lowering from $900,000 because we didn't know at the beginning, what the number was going to be. We stopped at 500,000, and today, as we speak, we should be around 380,000, okay, which I believe, okay, in a couple of weeks, we are going to clear probably 90% of that, okay? But I don't have those assurances yet because I don't have anything in writing, but we stay in communication. So the 500,000 right now is, we don't want to come back to the council and say, we have another $200,000 in expenses for Irma. So we've kept the 500,000 there until we're able to clear the $375,000 claim that we have with FDEM at this point. We had 11 claims. We're down to 1. And that is, believe it or not, check this out, for emergency services, okay, that's category B, of which FEMA pays 100%. FDEM has no allocation on that, but they are auditing it 100%, okay? And they just gave us 50% of the money as an advance, and then be fighting us for the other 50% of the money when we have all the documentation, we have all the arguments and everything, all the invoices and everything for them to pay us. And by the way, they have no stake on that because that is 100% FEMA money. So these are the things that we're going through. We have not had really any claims for which we not had any documentations or photos or GPS, locations and stuff like that. But we are right now out around, if I'm rounded up, like $400,000, and that's why we still have the $500,000 there, because we're not done yet, and something could happen. So that's the reason for that.
But eventually that number will reach 0.
Say that again, sir.
That eventually that number will reach 0.
No, it's never going to be 0 because we're not perfect. Okay. But it could be, but we're going to minimize that as much as possible. So I cannot give you a number at this time. I don't expect it to be $400,000, but I don't know if it could be 50, or it could be 60, there's 2 different things. There's ineligible items that are ineligible, and there are items that are deobligated. Ineligible means something that we thought that we can get reimbursed for, but it's not eligible for reimbursement, okay? And then you have the obligations,
which is claims that we make that we don't have a backup for. And the only thing that we have seen so far is very little de-obligations. I'm talking about a couple of $1,000s here or there. And what we have seen is probably $15,000 in items that are not eligible. So
Now,
Ismail, I'm sorry, council member, let me just, because I think I know where you're going with this. Ismail, at some point, we're gonna get to the end with FEMA or FDEM. And then they're gonna say, these are your disallowances. You gotta, you gotta give us back, or we're not gonna pay you for some amount, whether that's $50,000, $100,000. And let's say that number ends up being $50,000. So then that Hurricane Irma disallowance that I have on the screen there will go to 50, and the rest of it will be reflected in additional fund balance. Is that accurately or stated?
No, because in the $500,000, you also have the 5% portion of Miami Lakes. Remember, FEMA went 90, the state is 5, and Miami Lakes is 5. So we have there $200,000 that we're not going to get away with.
So we know that number there, 500, is going to be no less than 200,000.
Correct, more or less. It's 190 something, more or less.
But there's a potential for at least a couple $100,000 to migrate into additional fund balance.
Yeah, I'm expecting to end up probably in hopefully in 280 out of the 500, and but that includes, that's not the obligations or ineligibilities. That includes the portion that Miami Lakes have to pay, which is that 5%.
Sorry, Councilman.
The point is that we will still potentially end up with some additional money that we will roll into fund balance and kind of just keep sitting there as needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And we're trying to maximize that.
Good. Yeah, and that's what I like to hear, and that's exactly what I was trying to drive at, which was trying to understand why it hasn't yet fully been paid off, because I thought once everything got obligated, I thought, okay, for sure, that means we're getting everything. But I see what you're saying about, as they continue with the process of auditing, there may be some that become de-obligated and whatnot, and others that later are determined to be ineligible after all.
Yeah.
But I understand now. I appreciate you clearing it up and understanding that, we may still have some additional money then that gets rolled over into fund balance that we can then use to plug any gaps that may develop throughout the year. Thank you.
Yeah, and I wish that once the FEMA process was done, because we were, static about getting 100% obligation on that money. I wish that once that was done, then we'll be done with all this. But no, we actually, what happens after that is that we start all over again with the state and in depth. So, but I think it's all going to be good news, and we've done our best, and I think it's going to be great. The best is yet to come.
Amen.
So, Council Member Dieguez, so this number here is a very conservative number, right? Because we just talked about potentially this Hurricane Irma disallowance number reducing at some point once we finalize with FEMA. That will increase undesignated fund balance, increasing this number. We also talked about this number here that I told you is really a net of 92,000 because of the legal reserves. That when you see it again, the final accurate number, when you see it again in January or February, my recommendation to you, obviously it'll always be at your discretion to do what you want with it, but my recommendation to you is going to be not to reallocate it so that we can get closer to your ordinance, which dictated that this number of 15.24 needs to, over 3 years, migrate up to 20%. So I think that we'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 17 to 18% if those two moves happen throughout the year.
And how close are we to reaching 20% of assigned fund balance per the ordinance in dollar terms?
It's unassigned. That's
I'm talking about, remember the ordinance that we passed to increase the assigned reserves, the assigned fund balance to 20% from the original 50.
I think it's unassigned. It's money that we really are true fund balance, because these things in here are fund balance that's assigned to other stuff. So really what you want to do is, and I think that was the objective of your ordinance, was what is the amount that is truly a nest egg, truly a savings account that's not assigned or not committed for anything else, to have really a true savings account, that 20%. So this number of 2.6 is what we have now, and that represents 15.24% of our current budget.
See, because I was under the impression that we were closer to like 18% or so.
We were at that point, when we did last year's budget, we were at like 17 or 18%.
Got it. Okay. And next year, though, we'll reach 20%.
Right. So this number here, 2.6, it would have to be 3.4 to be able to get this at 20%.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So that's the summary, or that's the discussion for the general fund. The next thing is, now we're talking about some of our other funds. We have the special revenue fund, transportation gas tax. This is our revenue. We're projecting actually a reduction. Part of that is as a result of COVID. Some of it is a reduction. Melissa, some of this is affected by gas prices at the pump, gasoline prices, or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's why we're forecasting a conservative number here. So we are forecasting less than what we budgeted last year. If you look here, this is what we're forecasting the year-end projection for our current year, which is less than the 390 that we had budgeted. So we're actually going even a little more conservative and budgeting 354. This money is used for several different things. ADA compliance. If you look over here.
Mr. Manager, 1 second before we move on to expenditures, 1 second. Similar to the question that Councilman Collazo had regarding the sales tax, how did we get to a 9.22 decrease? What did we estimate that on?
Melissa, that was a number that was provided to us by the state, that estimate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's similar to some of the other things that we saw in the general fund revenues, like the half-penny sales tax and so forth. This number is a forecasted number that the state, and we also got this, Melissa, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? These are very, very fresh numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a number that was provided as a forecasted number by the state of Florida.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, if you look down here, these are the items that we use this gas tax money for. It's ADA compliance, pothole repair, sidewalk pressure cleaning, sidewalk replacement, striping and signs, contingency reserve, which is at 0, and road repairs and maintenance, which is budgeted at $80,000. And within this fund, we have a balanced budget. We have to balance every single fund independently. The next thing is PTP 20. PTP 20, we are forecasting revenues in this year of $251,600. The last year's adopted budget was $270, and as you see, we're forecasting to receive $20,000 less than what we had budgeted. So this PTP, again, Melissa, the same question. This number of 251,600, that is a number that is provided to us by the state of Florida?
Yes, sir. That is provided to us. Not by the state of Florida, but it is provided to us. Hey, are you trying to, am I speaking over you?
You guys are talking over each other. Who provides that estimate? Is that our estimate generated?
Citizens Independent Trust, the county.
Oh, okay. That's Dade County, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. This next revenue item here is advertising from freebie.
Real quick, Kate. And again, I guess how often are these numbers provided?
Okay. Melissa, once a year, right? Right?
This is provided once a year, and I believe, not I believe, these numbers came in about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago from the county.
Okay.
All right. This grant is a grant that we were awarded for the expansion of the freebie service. And then what's this number, Melissa? Or Kay? Budget carry forward for
Which one, sir?
the one I have highlighted here.
The 44?
Yeah.
That is an anticipated carry forward. It may be less.
Oh, here. Here.
Yeah, it may be less depending on how the surtax revenue comes in. We still have a couple months left, so that may end up being may end up being less. Hopefully not, but we'll wait and see.
Gotcha. So within here, salary and benefits, a portion of this fund is used for the payment of our transportation manager. We have the payment for the freebie service, and then the bus shelter insurance and repair. And once again, within the PTP 20, we end up with a balanced budget.
Mr. Manager, the freebie service, I noticed that the proposed budget is higher than the year before. What accounts for that increase?
We got this grant. We got this grant to expand. Remember that I think we had only 2 vehicles, and now we're at 3 vehicles. So we got this grant, and that's what led to the expansion of the freebie service.
Okay, so that accounts for the increase. Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, Black Olive tree removal program is basically self-explanatory. We have people who sometimes pay this program, which is something policy-wise that you may want to address, whether it's something we want to continue. I know that informally there's been discussion by some of you whether this is something we want to continue pursuing. But bottom line is the program is still in place, and individuals who want to get rid of the Black Olives can pay a fee. It goes into this pot, and then they have to mitigate it by planting a replacement tree. And this is a small fund, but it's there. 56,000 in revenues, and obviously 56,000 in expenditures. Now, Danny, if you're there, I believe that a portion of this money, or maybe all of this money, is going to be used for the West Lakes reforestation program or project. Danny, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I want to say that we transferred out approximately $42,000 from this fund this fiscal year to cover the 50% matching grant for this for phase 4 of West Lakes. That's currently ongoing.
And so, what about this portion, the portion for next year? Do we have a plan for that, the 56,889?
We can use it for phase 5. This money is specifically for reforestation projects and or installations around town.
Gotcha. Right.
Now, Ed, the 56,000. That's all the money that we budgeted. That's not money that's coming in from the fines, the tree fines and stuff like that. Where does that go?
Well, the
violation fines.
They're in here, right, Melissa? The fines are in here?
No, I want to say that's probably on page 1 under revenues.
Okay. So this is strictly money that people pay to have to remove the Black Olives in their...
Right. They pay it and then we reimburse the contractor. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Manager, we talked about this at my agenda briefing, but just to confirm, how many more phases are left after this coming fiscal year in the reforestation, the West Lakes reforestation program?
Danny, we're doing 4 now. Do we have 5 or 6?
Yeah, we're doing 4. We're doing 4 now. We're estimating probably an additional 2 phases. This year was a little bit lower because it was an unfunded project, so we went ahead and utilized this permitting fund to match the existing grant. We're anticipating $100,000 next fiscal year. We're shooting for a $50,000 matching grant, and then possibly a smaller phase 6 should finalize the entire project.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. This one is the PTP 80, and again, similar to the PTP 20, our revenue is provided by Miami-Dade County, and you see here the reduction, forecasted reduction.
No, just see what time he's going to come on.
No, Vice Mayor,
Vice Mayor, you're
I'm
not
sorry.
muted.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So we have a decrease there of 90,000, and the lion's share is that based on the COVID pandemic. We have expenditures here from this PTP. We pay a portion of, actually the other half of our transportation manager salary. We have street lighting, transportation studies, repairs and maintenance, and these are the items here that we pay out of PTP 80. We also have transfers out. And Melissa, Kay, correct me if I'm wrong, the 625 transfers out, that is primarily going to capital projects.
Yes, for the 59th Avenue.
Directly to 59th Avenue.
Gotcha. Thank you. This next one is obviously, we all know it well, the mobility fee. The mobility fee we expect in 2021 to generate 267,000 from the Auto Mall and the Kislak project. Those are the only two that we're budgeting for, that we have on the drawing board. You saw yesterday that the Auto Mall project is going to generate right about 1,000, and the balance is scheduled to be or forecasted to be as a result of the Kislak project. Now, I've probably mentioned it to you already privately and maybe even publicly before. What I've asked our finance and budget team to do is, when we get money from mobility, is to squirrel it away to help us offset any unforeseen increases in construction budget for the 59th Avenue project. It's a large project. I want to make sure we have a little bit of a nest egg squirreled away in the event that when we finally get to the point where we bid out construction, that if it comes in for more than what we were budgeting or estimating, that we have money set aside to make sure we can address any shortages in construction. So that's why, if you see here, it's all in contingency. It's all being budgeted into contingency. We're setting it aside for 59th Avenue in case we need it. All right. This is Special Revenue Fund. This is, right now, well, we don't have anything budgeted. We're forecasting 699. We're setting this aside. We're just bringing it over as a carry forward in contingency. And we have this for the 300,000 from the developer is in here. Melissa, Kate, tell me exactly where these revenues are going to be used or scheduled to be used.
So these two revenues, these three revenues, the 300,000 has just been carried forward from previous years. There's a contract that states that it's specifically for the use of educational purposes.
From Satori, right, Lennar?
That is correct. Yes.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you read in the note, this was the large park in lieu of and the greenway in lieu of is some funds that we received in last fiscal year, and we have carried them forward. They are specific. In the large park in lieu of, it can be used for acquisition of improvements of a new large park, such as Par 3, for example. And the greenway in lieu of may be used for pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure along the northern portion of 79th Court.
The first 300,000, may I? The first 300,000 again is from the Lennar project, and the 199 and the what is it? The other one is for the 200,000 came from the Lucida development.
Okay. Okay. And the Lucida, we received it in 1819, or did we receive it in this year?
The Lucida project, we received it in 2019.
Okay. Gotcha. Any questions there, council members? All right, moving on. Building fund. This is our building fund, building department operation. We are, if you see here, we had budgeted last year $1.23 million. We are actually forecasting 1.3 year-end projection. When we shut down the building department and construction kind of stopped, we were fortunate that the first half of the year was really strong. We shut down, I think it was in March, so it was about the midway point of the fiscal year, but by then we had already generated, I think it was 60 or 70% of budgeted permit fees. So that's why we were able to survive the year within the building department and building fund. And now after, when things have calmed down again after COVID, the building we generated has really bounced back. So we're trying to be a little conservative. We're not forecast 1.3, but we're staying within the same amount as what we forecasted last year. We have technology fees, violation fees in here 55. So the budget carried forward from here, from the end of our projection of the end of this year, will give us $3.5 million in the building fund for this year. Our operations are here, and our contingency reserves are going to be 8.4 or 894,000. I'm sorry. And then the transfers out, Melissa, 312. Where does that go? Does that go to the general fund or building fund? The facilities fund?
Yes.
Okay. Facilities and general
fund. Neighborhood service districts. You guys approved the first reading of the ordinance for the budget for the neighborhood service districts. These are pretty much self-explanatory. All 6 of them are contained within this one fund, right, ladies?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So
if you know on the, I'm sorry to interrupt you, on the proposed budget comments, under special assessment, you can see what each taxing district's current rate is.
Okay, in here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as we spoke about last night, 2 of those districts had realized a reduction, and the other 4, their rates remained flat. Right. Impact fees, park improvements.
Sir, you're muted and we can't hear you. Still can't hear you, sir.
Got it. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So we're just going to leave it there in contingency for future projects, park projects.
We didn't hear anything of the neighborhood service districts.
Oh.
You were muted. You were muted for a few seconds.
Sorry. The neighborhood service districts, you got the highlight of most of the information about that last night when you approved the first reading of the ordinance for the non-ad valorem rates. As we spoke about last night, the six districts, 2 of them realized a rate reduction. The other 4, their rates remain flat. So this is a conglomeration of all 6 districts are all put in here together. And their revenues are 1.68 and their expenses obviously are 1.68, the same with the balance. All right. Did I finish this one here? Park improvements. We have a carry forward of 258 from this year. And right now we're just, we have nothing earmarked for this. We're reserving this for future projects. Fund impact fees, park open space. This is for only for open space, for new open space. From here, we have a budget carry forward of 1.1. That's the only revenue source right now. And we're just planning to leave it on here. It's also being reserved for future projects. A portion of this money was used for the 154th Street Park. Danny, am I correct?
Can you repeat that again, sir?
This park open space from this fund, that's where we, from here is where we use the funds for the phase 1 of the 154 Bridge Park.
Yeah, I want to say it was the 154 Bridge Park and also the 170th Trail Extension project.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, public safety impact fee fund. We are expecting impact fees of $205,000 for the Auto Mall and Kislak building. We have a carry forward from this year that we're projecting of 60. That leaves this 265 as our budget, and it's in contingency reserves for future projects. More than likely, that'll be used. A big portion of that will be used for LPRs once we get this ready. All right, this is impact fee fund in lieu of road impact fees. This was from this fund was paid the traffic signalization and the Northwest 67th Avenue extra lane under the Palmetto. That was a special deal for those 2 projects. So this year we are not expecting any revenues from here. And obviously then no expenditures, but the fund still exists.
Mr. Manager, a question though on that fund.
Yes.
Right. I'm drawing a blank right now. I apologize. It's been a long day. But remind me, what were the projects that were covered again by the road impact fees other than the Northwest 67th Avenue extension?
Traffic signalization.
There we go. So do we know where we're at with that project? My understanding is that there was a contract awarded for the management of the technology for that to Siemens, but do we know how soon we can get that finally moving?
Yeah, actually there was some recent, just in the last day or 2, some recent updates. And Carlos Acosta, if you're there, I know that you provided me with that update. If you can share that with the council, where we are with that traffic signalization project.
Sure, absolutely, Mr. Manager. Late last week, well, actually, it was this early this week. Sorry, the contractor did the adaptive signalization settings. So right now, it should be working in adaptive mode. So what's pending is for the county to come and do their final inspections and approve the project. So as of right now, the adaptive should be working. I know this week I drove it back and forward a few times just to see if I, you know, how I noticed things. I didn't see any issues with the traffic lights, and the flow was pretty good. But I'm sure that it will take a little bit of time for us to kind of assess it, make sure that it has the, you know, is doing the intended effect. But right now we're just pending county final inspection so that we could close the impact fee agreement and invoices.
So it's actually operating right now, just like you said, now it's the final inspections and a matter of us checking out the computer to make sure it's learning and analyzing correctly.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Do we know, well, I mean, is there a timeline? I mean, obviously it's working already now. How long are you going to be assessing it for? I mean, is it going to be continual? Or is there going to reach a point, let's say in 3 months, where it's like, okay, this thing is working fine on its own. No more assessments are needed right now.
I think in terms of assessment, it'll be a while. Granted, we don't have all the school traffic and all that we typically had, and I guess if to really see how it will function and to assess whether it, you know, the impact, the true impact that it had, we will have to wait till we get all that normalization of traffic back. So I will say it will be a few months. Give it time to get, you know, the school back and kind of businesses open and that heavy traffic that we used to have before, to be able to give you a more accurate picture. But so far, I mean, this week has been working fine.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, debt service. In here, we have no income in the debt service fund. We have direct payments that we have received from the federal government. And then we have transfers in Melissa or Kay, can you tell me where these transfers come from?
Transfer comes from the electric utility service tax.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it's skimmed off first and then it goes into this fund, right, to pay the debt service on the building?
The principal and the interest, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. Then we have the expenditures here of the actual payments for the debt service that we have.
Yes.
All right, stormwater utility fund. We've actually spoken quite a bit about this over the last week or so. So we have revenues that we project from the stormwater fee. We have interest income, and that's essentially the entire revenue stream. From here, we pay from the stormwater fee. We pay a portion of. Melissa, you're not muted. The world of Zoom. From here, we pay a portion of the salaries of our public works director and our public works engineer. 50% of their salary each, and that's paid from here. We also have administrative costs. These are all in line with what we normally pay. This year, obviously, we already did the rate study last year, so we have no expense here for the rate study under professional services. The canal maintenance, roadway and drainage cleaning, and then a small portion here in contingency. And this amount here is the transfer out to the capital project for the West Lakes drainage project.
Excuse, Mr. Manager, what's the debt service on the stormwater utility fund?
Melissa or Kay, can you tell debt service? What debt is there under that?
Yeah, Mr. Manager, part of that is the QNIP. We have a debt with the county.
Okay.
And the other part is for canal dredging.
When was that debt taken on? I mean, the QNIP I know I'm aware of, but was there an additional debt taken on against that account?
I think that was okay. I don't remember. I don't know that we have the exact date, but I think that was passed on by the county back in 2000, maybe 16 or something like that.
That was in, I'm not sure if it's 2016 or 17 or 18, but it was a 10-year. It was passed on by the county for 10 years.
Yeah, that's
the
when
canal dredging.
Yeah, when they refinance, right?
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
They refinanced their bond and then they had to redistribute some of the debt out.
And how much longer is left on the QNIP?
I think it's until 24.
Okay, thank you.
I think I don't have the papers in front of me, but somewhere around there. It's not. I don't think there's 10 years left on it at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Facility maintenance fund. This is the fund. Several departments pay into this. Administration pays in. This funds all of our facility maintenance. The police department pays a portion of it, and the building department pays a portion. This is distributed by square footage. And then from here, we pay the salary of the staff that's overseeing our facility maintenance, our utilities, and our repair and maintenance of our facilities. Capital projects, capital fund, facilities maintenance. This year, we project no revenues or expenses in this fund. Capital fund, parks and recreation, we have no projected. The only revenue here is a budget carry forward. And this is where this is allocated. We have 450 for MLOP, MLOP, the storage facility, the bridge park, Park 3 has 150,000, and mini parks we have $3,900. That's the allocation of that $877,000. Capital fund transportation. We have in here grants that were projected at $4.4 million.
You should write those grants.
Huh? Say that again. Okay. Okay. These grants, I believe, are FDOT grants. And this money is over here. It's allocated towards the 59th Avenue project, safe routes to schools for Bob Graham, the design portion, and we budget for the Miglo project on that's 170th. And then we have here 457,000 that we're leaving in reserve, proposed for 59th Avenue. Also as another potential safety net towards that project. Capital Fund Stormwater. We have grants. We have of $2 million. And this is all for Westlake's drainage project for fiscal 20 in this next fiscal year. And Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, right now that's the only drainage project that we have on the drawing board for this coming fiscal year, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Manager.
We almost had a couple more, but they got vetoed at the state. And this is the final fund that we want to look at. We are now once again funding the sinking fund at $150,000. That brings with the budget carry forward that we had paid in the first year here in 18-19, that brings the balance of the sinking fund up to $300,000. And that's the end of the budget, including all funds. I'll unshare my screen if I can. All right.
Mr. Manager, going back to the stormwater fund, actuals 18-19 that were transferred in were 403. Year-end projection for 19-20 is 290, and proposed budget for 2021 is 122. Just walk me through the, I guess how that money is being transferred in, how it's being transferred in, and why it's coming out to be less. Is it because it's being used in other projects?
This fund here?
I can't, yes, the capital fund on the stormwater.
Oh, sir, Mr. Councilman Collazo, could you repeat your question, please?
So I was just going in through the transfer in, there's two categories on the revenues on the stormwater capital fund. There's grants, and that's self-explanatory. Like I know, how that money comes in, but there's a transfer in amount. The transfer in amount
from the stormwater fee. That in the stormwater, the regular, not the capital stormwater, but the regular stormwater, there's a transfer, and I'll show it to you. And that is the amount that was transferred out of stormwater towards a capital project. It's here. It's
down.
Okay. You see it there on the screen?
I'm trying to flip to it onto the page where I have it on the stormwater utility.
Yeah, page 16.
Yeah, I got it.
The last expenditure. That goes towards West Lake's drainage project.
Right. So from depending on how much you need is depending on how much you transfer out of that fund for those particular projects.
Well, what we do is really whatever we have left over, right? Because all of this stuff in here are things, professional services that, that's for consultants and so forth, that we have some discretion over. A lot of these things in here, really we have some discretion over roadway and drainage cleaning, but not really much, right? That's the back truck, that whole operation. And then from this whole $1.1 million, the amount that we were able to dedicate to capital was $122,000. So it's not driven by the projects, it's driven by what's left over after operations. All of this is operational stuff. And what was left over was $122,000 that we were able to dedicate to stormwater capital.
Got it. So I guess the backwards then, in year 18-19, and I'm sorry that I flipped the page, but there was roughly 300,000 in 18-19, then 200,000, now 100,000 left over in that fund.
Yeah, I mean, in 18-19 we had 250,000. Last year, the current year, the year that we're in, 165,000, and now this year but you see up here, the revenue streams they fluctuate too. So it depends on different things, on the number of consumers and the number of ERUs. We've talked about that over the last week or so.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Mayor, welcome.
My only concern, is and again, I know somebody else may have prefaced it. I know that you guys are working with the latest numbers. My only concern is to leave, I guess, cushion or margin of error if there are ripple effects, or we're going to continue to see some economic impacts with the state of Florida, with some of these projections. And I understand that you're working with numbers that they give you, but when there's a variance of almost twofold on the percentages depending on what the fund is, that gives me pause, right? So like I see in some funds, like the communication service tax, there's a variance of negative 16%. And then on some of the other ones, it's like negative 6 or 7%. So I don't,
Yeah, each of these funds have different dynamics going on, council member. like for instance, the communications tax, that one is something that has already, regardless, forget about COVID, forget about any other factor. It's already something that was already trending downward. So if you couple that with some of the other things like COVID, that one made that one a little more dramatic.
Got it. So I mean, so then that makes sense because then they're all around that 7% range.
Yeah,
that's
and they're all generated from different things. So COVID, as unique as it is, it was it affected different things differently. Like, you know, people were still pouring gas, you know, but then maybe they weren't doing certain things. They weren't spending certain money. People lost their job, you know, so it affected these different revenue streams differently. It wasn't universal, and you can say, okay, every single one of the revenue streams that was affected by X percent. They're depending on the behavior of our population. It was it affected these different revenue streams differently.
Right. So I guess my only concern or trepidation is kind of seated in something that you are already doing naturally, which is taking a conservative position on maybe on some of these forecasting numbers, in the sense that if they were to slide another 3 or 5%.
You there? Council member, we lost you. He's back. We lost you, sir. You're muted and sideways. There we go.
There was a call coming in, and unfortunately, I pressed the button to try to ignore the call, and what I ended up doing was disconnecting from the call. So from this call. No, if there's further erosion on any of those numbers, I guess that's why we have the reserve fund there, right, to pick up that. But I just like to see a little bit more margin or cushion there, because what I keep on hearing from the forecast from Tallahassee, right, that they still don't understand the full ramifications of it. So they're giving us numbers. Some of these numbers are the most current. They're 3 to 4 weeks recent, and they still don't understand the full ramifications of what the budget is going to be. I just wanted to see if there was still some additional margins where we could play and still have, where you're not coming back and we're coming into the red, you know, situation where they might do an adjustment mid-year and say, hey, look, these numbers we gave you back in July, that's not really where we're at, and it's going to be a little bit different. So that was my only concern that right now I have. But if you have that confidence in these numbers, and we're confident that these are not going to slide or shift, I guess we'll wait and see, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could say, and I'm no economist, but I would say that the worst of the economic impact was felt during this year, unless there's some dramatic downward, you know, change in the COVID, that things really, you know, go crazy and things are worse than they were back in March and April. I think that we've seen the worst, where that complete shutdown for so long. Economically, I think we've seen already the worst of the downturn, and it was in this current year, and we survived it. We survived it. In fact, we're projecting a minor year-end surplus. So we make the adjustments as the year goes on, as some revenue. And remember what a budget is. The budget is not etched in stone. It's a snapshot at a given point in time. It's the snapshot as of October 1. Throughout the year, ebbs and flows, changes. Some things come in more than what you were projecting. We obviously do our best, and our budget team and finance team do a yeoman's job of being accurate with these forecasts. There's a basis for them. They're not just a number that they pull out of thin air. They partner with people like Dade County in the state of Florida that we rely on for revenues, and they constant conversation with them. And so the numbers are based in logic. They're not just numbers that are pulled out of thin air. And, but obviously what happens, what starts off October 1, by the time you get to September 30th, there's a lot of dynamics that happen and changes that happen. And we did a great job managing this year. And I think that, personally, I think that we've seen economically the worst of the worst is behind us.
All right, thank you.
Well, council members, mayor, vice mayor, council members, if nobody has any other questions, I think that we've completed our briefing. And then this is the budget that we will be preparing and putting before you at the budget hearing next month for consideration. And we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Manager and staff members, for the presentation.
Yes, thank you.
All right, guys, have a good night. Check into the All America City Awards. They're about to announce it in the next 5 or 10 minutes. So
is that gonna, where do we check out at it?
It should be on their Facebook page. I'm on the Zoom call now on my
on their Facebook page.
Yep.
Okay, it's called All America
City.
Okay.
They were having issues with the Facebook page earlier, so they sent a direct link to their Zoom.
Okay.
Got it. Maybe you could, if one of you guys can provide that.
Be on invite, your calendar invite.
Got it.
I'll send it out to everybody in case it wasn't sent to everybody.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.